Some truths do not arrive through logic. They arrive through a single, quiet moment of recognition, a moment when something outside of you reflects something hidden within you. And for just a second, you feel seen in a way that words rarely manage. That is what is about to happen right now. Before you are four cats, not photographs, not illustrations chosen for beauty. Each one has been placed here with intention. Each carries a different energy, a different presence, a different emotional frequency. Before your mind begins analyzing colors or patterns, before you start asking yourself what each cat might mean, pause, breathe, let your eyes move across them slowly. Notice which one pulls you, not which one looks the most interesting, not which one seems the most appealing on the surface, but which one creates a quiet pull in your chest, a subtle sense of familiarity, as if something in you already knows. This is important. The moment you begin to think, you step away from the deeper truth this test is designed to reveal. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious does not speak in sentences. It speaks in images, in symbols, in the language of attraction and resistance. Long before our rational mind catches up, the unconscious has already responded. It has already leaned toward something, and that lean is meaningful. Throughout human history, the cat has occupied a unique space in the collective unconscious. Unlike most animals, the cat was never fully domesticated in the deepest sense. It chose to live beside humans, not beneath them. It retained its mystery, its solitude, its inner world, even while sharing your space and your warmth. In ancient Egypt, the cat was considered divine, a guardian of the threshold between the living world and the unseen world. In Japanese mythology, the cat carried spiritual power and intuition beyond human understanding. Across cultures and centuries, the cat has consistently symbolized one thing above all else: the hidden self, the part of you that watches quietly, that knows more than it reveals, that lives at the edge between the seen and the unseen. To choose a cat in this moment is to choose a reflection of your inner nature, not the self you present to the world. The self that exists in the quiet spaces, the one that watches from a window while others rush past. So before we continue, make your choice. Look at the four cats once more. Let your intuition lead. Do not correct it. Do not argue with it. Simply notice which one you feel drawn to and hold that choice in your mind, because what follows will reveal not who you are trying to be, but who you already are. If your gaze was drawn to the first cat, the one who carries stillness the way others carry noise, then something profound is moving through your inner world right now. This cat does not beg for attention. It does not perform. It sits within itself, complete, contained, radiating a quiet that most people find both calming and slightly unnerving. And you recognize something in that. People drawn to the white cat are often described by others as calm, composed, even serene. But what those others rarely understand is how much that calm costs. You did not arrive at stillness easily. You built it, often from the raw material of experiences that were anything but still. In Jungian terms, the white cat corresponds to the archetype of the wise child, the soul that carries knowledge it cannot fully explain, the person who seemed to understand things from an early age that others took decades to grasp. You have likely always sensed what is unspoken in a room. You feel the emotional temperature before a single word is exchanged. You know when something is wrong before there is any visible reason to know it. This is not a skill you developed. It is something deeper. It is the way your psyche is structured. Your inner world is extraordinarily rich. There are thoughts you have never said aloud, questions that have lived inside you for years without anyone ever asking them. You process life at a depth that conversation rarely reaches, which means you have spent much of your life feeling slightly unseen. Even when surrounded by people who care about you, you do not share easily, not because you are cold, but because you understand that most people are not truly prepared to hold what you carry. You have offered pieces of yourself before and watched them be mishandled, not out of cruelty, but out of an inability to receive what you were giving. So you learn to protect what is sacred. But this protection, necessary as it once was, has a shadow. When the inner world is kept entirely private, it begins to press against its own walls. Emotions do not disappear because they are unspoken. They deepen. They intensify quietly. And sometimes they surface in unexpected ways, as exhaustion without reason, as distance in relationships, as a strange grief you cannot trace to any single source. The white cat teaches this lesson. Purity of inner life is a gift, but it must be allowed to breathe outward. Not to everyone, not all at once, but to someone, in some way. You are a healer by nature, not necessarily by profession. People feel different after spending time with you. Calmer, less afraid, more themselves. You offer something rare in a noisy world. A quality of presence that does not demand anything in return, that is a form of love, even when you do not name it as such. Your challenge right now is not to find more stillness. You already have it. Your challenge is to trust that your voice, your truth, your inner world, has value beyond the walls you build around it. Ask yourself, where in your life have you been waiting for someone to ask the right question before you allow yourself to be known? What would it feel like to offer yourself without waiting for permission? The white cat does not chase. It does not perform. But it does, eventually, allow itself to be found. If the second cat captured your attention, if something in the darkness of its presence felt familiar rather than frightening, then you carry a kind of knowing that most people spend their entire lives running from. The black cat has always existed at the boundary between the known and the unknown. It is a symbol of the unconscious itself, of the parts of self that live in shadow, not because they are wrong, but because they are powerful, and power that is not yet understood must be kept somewhere safe while it waits. You understand shadow, not as a concept, but as a lived experience. You are someone who has faced things that others have not. You may not speak of them often. In fact, you may rarely speak of them at all. But those experiences shaped you in ways that run beneath your personality, beneath your habits, beneath even your own understanding of yourself. They gave you a perception that cannot be taught, an ability to see through surfaces, through performances, through the carefully constructed versions of reality that most people accept without question. Carl Jung described the shadow not as the dark side of the self, but as the unlived life, the parts of who we are that were pushed aside because they did not fit, because they frightened someone, because they were too intense, too honest, too much. The black cat represents that unlived life calling to be recognized. People drawn to this cat often feel deeply misunderstood, not because they are difficult, but because they are genuine in a world that frequently rewards a polished version over the real one. You cannot easily pretend. You struggle to perform contentment you do not feel or enthusiasm that does not exist. This honesty, while isolating at times, is also your greatest integrity. Your instincts are sharp, almost uncomfortably so. You can read people quickly, sometimes within moments of meeting them. You sense motivations beneath words, discomfort beneath smiles, truth beneath stories. This makes deep connection rare, but extraordinary when it arrives. Because the people who remain in your life after you have truly seen them are people of real substance. You do not maintain relationships out of habit or social obligation. Every connection you sustain is one you have consciously chosen to trust. But the shadow of the black cat is this. The same perception that protects you can also isolate you. When you see too clearly, when you feel too much, the temptation is to withdraw, to watch from a distance, to keep your own counsel and ask nothing of anyone. This independence is powerful, but it can quietly become loneliness wrapped in the language of preference. There are things you want that you have perhaps stopped allowing yourself to want. A connection deep enough to hold the weight of your full self. A space where you do not have to manage your own intensity. A relationship where being completely known does not feel like a risk. You deserve those things, not as a reward for your strength, but as a right of your humanity. The black cat does not fear the dark because it knows that the dark is simply where things that have not yet been seen go to wait. You carry that same courage. The courage to remain in the difficult places long enough to understand them rather than flee. Your psyche is not asking you to become lighter. It is asking you to stop treating your depth as a burden and start treating it as the extraordinary gift it actually is. If the third cat drew you in, the one whose warmth seems to radiate outward as if it were made of stored sunlight, then you carry a form of energy that the world needs far more than often acknowledges. This cat does not hide. It does not withdraw. It is present, curious, alive in a way that makes others feel more alive simply by proximity. And somewhere in that openness, you recognize yourself. You are a person of warmth. This is not a small thing. True warmth, the kind that does not perform itself but simply exists, is one of the rarest qualities a human being can possess. People feel it immediately when they encounter you. They relax in ways they cannot fully explain. They find themselves saying more than they intended. They feel, without being told, that they are welcome. Carl Jung wrote about the archetype of the Great Mother, not as a gender role, but as a psychological force, the energy of nurturing, of creative abundance, of the life-affirming impulse that exists in all human beings regardless of who they are. The golden cat carries this energy. It is a part of the psyche that says yes to life, yes to connection, yes to the messy, unpredictable, irreplaceable reality of being genuinely close to another human being. You are likely someone who gives generously. Your time, your attention, your care, your presence. You remember what matters to people. You notice when someone is struggling before they admit it. You reach out. You show up. You make ordinary moments feel significant because you are genuinely, completely there in them. But there is a shadow beneath the warmth, and it is important to name it honestly. When someone gives as naturally and as fully as you do, they often learn very early that their giving is valued more than their needing, that others are more comfortable with them as a source of warmth than as someone who sometimes requires warmth in return. Over time, this creates a quiet imbalance. You become extraordinarily skilled at caring for others and quietly, almost imperceptibly, lose the habit of advocating for your own needs. You may smile when you are tired. You may reassure others when you yourself are uncertain. You may absorb conflict to keep the peace, carry emotional weight that does not belong to you, and tell yourself it is fine when it is not entirely fine. The golden cat is not asking you to stop giving. Generosity is your nature, and it is beautiful, but it is asking you to notice the direction of your care. When did you last offer yourself the same quality of attention you offer others? When did you last sit with your own discomfort long enough to understand it rather than rushing to resolve it so you could be available again? Your joy is real. Your warmth is genuine. But joy and warmth are sustainable only when they are fed, not only given. This is your moment to ask, who holds space for you the way you hold it for others? And if the answer is uncertain, that is not a reflection of your worth. It is an invitation to let yourself be found by people capable of reciprocity, to receive, not just give, to be warm toward yourself with the same instinct you show the rest of the world. If the fourth cat called to you, if its layered presence and quiet intensity created a recognition you could not immediately name, then you are someone who has always lived slightly beyond the borders of what can be explained. This cat is not simply mysterious. It is ancient. It carries a quality of something that has seen much, survived much, and understood something essential about the nature of existence that most people only glimpse in rare moments. And you recognized it, not with your mind, with something older than your mind. You have always known there is more beneath the surface of conversations, more beneath the events of your life, more beneath the person you show to the world, and even the person you believe yourself to be. This knowing is not philosophical for you. It is visceral. It is the way you have always moved through the world, sensing layers that others do not pause long enough to perceive. Carl Jung believed that some individuals are born with a deeper channel to collective unconscious, that invisible reservoir of shared human experience that underlies individual psychology. These are people who dream vividly, who feel the symbolic weight of ordinary events, who experience intuitions that defy rational explanation and are later proven accurate. If this describes you, it is not coincidence. It is the architecture of your psyche. You have likely undergone transformation that others cannot fully see from the outside, not the visible transformations of changed circumstances, but the interior ones, the kind that happen in silence, over long periods, when something essential within you quietly dismantles itself and rebuilds in a form that is truer, though harder to explain. You have shed versions of yourself the way a season sheds what it no longer needs. And each time you emerge not diminished but more precisely yourself. This process is not comfortable. Transformation never is. And people drawn to the fourth cat often carry scars from their transformations, places where the shedding cost something significant, a relationship that could not survive who you were becoming, a belief system that collapsed when examined honestly, a version of yourself you grieved even as you outgrew it. But here is what your psyche knows, even when your mind forgets. Those losses were not failures. They were evidence of a soul committed to growth over comfort, to truth over familiarity, to becoming over simply existing. Your challenge is not to deepen further. You have depth enough. Your challenge is integration, to take the wisdom gathered in the interior life and allow it to shape the exterior one, to speak more what you know, to trust that your perception, your spiritual sensitivity, your capacity for understanding has practical value in the ordinary world, not just in moments of solitude. The fourth cat does not ask you to become more mysterious. It asks you to become more present, to bring what lives in your depths into the light of actual lived relationship, to let yourself be known, not just understood from a distance. What are you carrying that no one else has yet been invited to see? What would it mean to allow someone close enough to witness the depth you have spent so long developing alone? Your choice of cat was not a label. It was a mirror. Each cat carries a dominant psychological energy. The white cat speaks of intuitive wisdom held quietly inward. The black cat speaks of shadow perception and the power born from difficult experience. The golden cat speaks of warmth, generosity, and the need to turn care back toward the self. And the mystical cat speaks of transformation, depth, and the integration of an interior life into lived reality. But here's what matters most. You are not only one cat. You never were. Carl Jung believed that psychological wholeness, what he called individuation, is not the triumph of one aspect of the self over others. It is a gradual integration of all parts, the wise and the wounded, the warm and the guarded, the visible and the hidden, the known and the still becoming. The cat you chose reveals which inner force is most active in you right now. The others reveal what may be waiting to be developed, listened to, or brought forward. If you chose the white cat, your growth lies in gentle outward expression, in trusting that what lives inside you has value beyond the silence. If you chose the black cat, your growth lies in allowing intimacy without armor, in recognizing that strength does not require perpetual self-sufficiency. If you chose the golden cat, your growth lies in receiving with the same fullness that you give, in learning that your needs are not an imposition, but an invitation. If you chose a mystical cat, your growth lies in bringing your depth into relationship, in allowing the world to know, not just sense, what you carry. None of these paths is easier than the others. All of them require courage. All of them require honesty. And all of them begin with the same first step, the willingness to look honestly at what the mirror shows. Take a moment before you move on. Sit with what you have read. Notice what resonated, what surprised you, what created resistance. Resistance is not disagreement. It is often recognition that has not yet found its language. Share in the comments which cat you chose and what part of the interpretation felt most true. Often seeing the choices of others helps us understand our own more clearly. And sometimes the comment you almost did not leave is the one that changes something for someone else who needed to read it. Because this test was never really about cats. It was about the part of you that recognized something in one of them, the part of you that was already waiting to be seen. And it has been seen now. The only question remaining is what you will do with that.